This section is on the slope of a line. We will be using the slope formula to find the slope of any given line. The term slope is defined as the ratio of vertical change to horizontal change from any 2 points. It can also be described as rise over run. The vertical change is found by subtracting the y-coordinates of the endpoints. The horizontal change is found by subtracting the x-coordinates of the endpoints. Again, the slope, called m, of the line through the points x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2 can be described as rise over run, or the change in y over the change in x. The equation for the slope is written as y sub 2 minus y sub 1, all divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Let's do an example. It says find the slope of the line through the points -4, 2, and 5, -5. We can find the slope by plugging the 2 points into the equation. But first, let's label each point with x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. So our first point will be x sub 1, y sub 1, and the second point will be our x sub 2, y sub 2. So the equation in the numerator is y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So we take our y sub 2, which is -5, and we subtract our y sub 1, which is 2. And then simplifying that gives us -7. In the denominator, the equation tells us to subtract our x values. So to do so, we take the x sub 2, which is 5, and we subtract our x sub 1, which is -4. Simplifying that in the denominator gives us 9. So the slope of these 2 points is -7 over 9. Now be careful. When using the slope formula, we need to make sure to subtract the x values and the y values in the same order. So if you begin by starting to subtract y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that must be divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. You could also start with y sub 1 minus y sub 2, but that must be divided by x sub 1 minus x sub 2. Another thing to keep in mind is that the change in y is the numerator and the change in x is the denominator. Next, let's talk about finding the slope of a line if we are not given 2 points. The first thing we want to do is find 2 different points on that line and then use the slope formula to find the slope. For the first example, we need to find the slope of the line 2x minus 5y equals 10. 2 points we know how to find are the x and the y intercepts. So first, let's let y equal 0 to find the x-intercept. After plugging in y equals 0 into the equation, we find that x equals 5. 1 point on this line is the x-intercept at 5, 0. Now, let x equal 0 to find the y-intercept. After plugging in x equals 0 into the equation, we find that y equals -2. And the second point is the y-intercept at 0, -2. Now that we have our 2 points, we can use the slope formula to find the slope of that line. In the numerator, we have to subtract the y-coordinates. So we take -2 and subtract 0. In the denominator, we take 0 and subtract 5 from it. So our slope of the equation is 2/5. In another example, if we are given the equation y equals -3, we know this graph looks something like a line at y equals -3. We can choose any 2 points on this line to find the slope. Let's choose 0, -3, and -1, -3 to use to find the slope. Using the slope formula, we take the y values and subtract them from each other. So we have y2 minus y1 all divided by x2 minus x1. So taking -3 for our y2 and subtracting -3 from it will be in the numerator. In the denominator, we have 0 minus a -1. This simplifies to -3 plus 3 divided by 1, or 0 over 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0, therefore the slope of this horizontal line is 0. And in fact, any horizontal line has a slope of 0. Next, if we have an equation in the form x equals a, where a is any number, we know this is a vertical line at a. So in our example, x equals 2. We know this is a vertical line at x equals 2. Again, we can choose any 2 points to find the slope that are on this line. So let's choose 2, 0 and 2, 1. Using the slope formula, we plug in y2 minus y1, so 0 minus 1, all divided by 2 minus 2. This equals -1 divided by 0. And since division by 0 is undefined, the slope is undefined. And in fact, any vertical line has an undefined slope.